to hear firsthand from one of our country's most influential political leaders. Please join me in welcoming the Honorable Michael Ignatieff.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you. Appreciate it. Thank you so much. Thank you. Thank you very much for welcoming me here. I brought Susanna along, and when Susanna is here, you know it's an important speech. She only shows up for the big ones. There you go. It's great to share a table with Hazel McCallion, a woman who I think commands the respect and admiration of every Canadian, but boy, do they love her in Mississauga. Thank you, Hazel. Nice to see you. When we look at the Canadian economy, we see it through the prism of the middle-class Canadian family. And what we see in our party is these families are worried. Across Canada, 300,000 people who lost their jobs in this recession still haven't found work. Here in Mississauga, and I was talking to Mayor McCallion about this, the unemployment rate in this drive wheel of the Canadian economy is above the Ontario average, and it's above the Canadian average. It was at 9.5%, if I'm not mistaken. There have been cuts in some of the great businesses that sustain this economy, and Canadian families are worried about their jobs. And in a city that's been known for success for decades, this enduring high rate of unemployment is a real source of concern, especially among young workers where youth unemployment is in fact double the national average. Now, if Canada is better off, and we think it is better off than Britain and the United States, we're happy to say that, but if it is, we believe it's because of the steps taken by Liberal governments in the 1990s to get our house in order. And please note, thank you. But please note that those steps that we took in the 1990s were opposed every step of the way by Stephen Harper. He opposed bank regulation. He opposed paying down debt. He opposed putting a fiscal prudence measure into the budget. And above all, it was Stephen Harper who advocated deregulation of our banking system and criticized Jean Chrétien for insisting on tough national Canadian bank regulation. The very stuff he's taking credit for now, he was criticizing in 2002. And all I can say, he was wrong then, and thank goodness he wasn't Prime Minister, because we'd look a lot like the United States and Great Britain right now had he been Prime Minister instead of Jean Chrétien. These are facts that have to be faced. So when Stephen Harper goes around the world, and he was in Europe this week boasting about how great the Canadian banking system is, what he's really boasting about is the Liberal record. The challenges that we identify are, first of all, that we've got an aging population. The baby boomers are coming up to retirement very soon. As soon as they click into retirement, what happens? Healthcare costs begin to rise. Pension costs begin to rise. So we've got aging demographic, rising healthcare costs, and rising pension costs. And right behind that is the fourth challenge, labor shortage. Yes, labor shortage. By the time Canada turns 150 in 2017, we'll have nearly 1 million people in this country who can't find a job because they don't have the skills that we need. And at the same time, we'll have 750,000 jobs that remain unfilled because we don't have the skilled workers to fill them. And this is happening right now. In Waterloo, one of the most dynamic high-tech centers in our country, there are 4,000 unfilled jobs. We're in this future right now, and the future is called jobs without people, people without jobs. And this is a challenge we have to identify as a country and we have to fix as a country. And the message I got as a political leader out of this conference in Montreal is, wake up, Canada. This is coming at us. We got to get ready. We've got to prepare, and we've got to take steps now. Mr. Harper is not talking about any of this. Mr. Harper lives in the paradise of an eternal present, when the only job he's got is to prepare today's headlines instead of preparing Canada for its future. His #1 economic priority, get this, is a $6 billion corporate tax cut. Now, we just think in a $56 billion deficit, that is an imprudent political choice to make. We can't afford further tax cuts for corporations when we're in a $56 billion hole. Our party loves competitive corporate tax rates, but we believe that they're already 25% more competitive than our American competitors. We're okay on that score. Our real problem is we haven't got a labor force ready for tomorrow. That's what we're saying to the Canadian people. And right now, when you look around the world, when you look at the sovereign debt crisis, you begin to think that some of the choices the Conservative government is making are wildly imprudent. We've got Greece on the edge of default. We've got the UK swimming in red ink without even a government. And we've got Spain and Portugal fast behind. This is scary stuff. And we've got to frame up the choices Canada makes, not in terms of the best possible scenario, but in terms of what is more likely to happen, tougher, more difficult scenarios. We will defer further corporate tax cuts until we've got the budget balanced, and then we will resume corporate tax cuts when the country can afford them and not before. And balance the budget, we most definitely will. We'll set a clear and credible target to reduce the deficit to 1% of GDP within 2 years of taking office, and we'll decline it every year thereafter until the books are balanced. This is the kind of responsible fiscal management you expect from the Liberal Party. This is the responsible fiscal management you will get under my leadership. Everywhere I go, Canadians are worried about retirement security, and we've got to do something about that. 1/3 of Canadians don't have enough retirement savings to maintain their standard of living. Another third don't have any retirement savings at all, except what they're going to get from the government, and that won't be enough to keep them in a standard of living. These problems are only going to get worse. We've got to have a national conversation. That's why it's so great that the Board of Trade is giving us the opportunity to talk about this in public. We've made some very clear suggestions. The government has done nothing about this for 4 years, but we've proposed a supplementary Canada pension plan, a stranded pensions agency, that is when companies go belly up and pensions are in difficulty, we put these pensions into some kind of administration to provide some support for the families that are vulnerable. And we propose changes to the Bankruptcy and Insolvency Act to protect those pensioners who are in long-term disability. So we've got some very specific stuff on the window. We're willing to work with any party to make progress on this issue. These are the changes that I think we need to make right now to take some of the pressure off Canadian middle-class families. In the next election, there really will be a clear choice, and don't let anybody tell you that choices won't be clear. On the one hand, we'll have a Conservative government that can only offer further corporate tax cuts as its response to the problems of Canadian productivity and competitivity. On the other hand, we'll have a Liberal alternative that freezes corporate taxes, that fights the deficit, and makes specific targeted investments in learning, care, and Canadian leadership. We want to be the party of change in the next election. We want to be the party of engagement. We want to be the party of clear, ambitious choices that don't just deal with tomorrow, but deal with the day after and the day after and the day after. So we create a story that we share, a vision of the future that unites as a people instead of dividing us, makes us a bigger country, not a smaller country. This is a Canada in which every Canadian gets a shot at the Canadian dream. Every child gets help at a good start, and every family gets a helping hand, and we have the greenest and most efficient and most competitive economy in the world. That's the vision that we want to offer to the Canadian people, and it's been an enormous pleasure to share it with you at the Mississauga Board of Trade. Thank you so much.
This was a damn good production.